everyone, welcome back to Level Up with Dawn. Before we get into this video, please subscribe down below. I promise you won't regret it and it's completely free. Today we'll be talking about the property mistakes that I have made, and as embarrassing as this is, I want to let you guys know about these so that you don't make those same mistakes, because some of these mistakes can be very expensive if you learn them too late. So mistake number one is being driven by emotions. This has happened to me twice. I did it. I'm responsible. But I was driven by emotions in two instances where I wanted to buy property. The first one, which I thank God didn't work out, I saw a property. It's one that I was considering actually living in, and I saw this property, loved it. Also, they were still in the planning phase. They only had show houses, and I thought, I love it. It's got space for a 2-door fridge. I mean, I'm sold. So I put down the offer, wrote down all my details, took it to the bank. Well, actually, they took it to their bond originators to get it approved. It was declined. In hindsight, I'm so grateful that got declined, because I would have never been able to afford it at the time. And also, it was not, even if I could afford it, it was not the right time to be buying property to move out. I was pregnant at the time. I thought, oh, I'm pregnant, may as well buy property to live in. No. Having a baby has enough expenses on its own. You do not need property on top of that, especially because both of them are so unexpected. Things pop up when you least expect them. So I'm glad that didn't happen. The second one, you know what the problem is? The way that I assess if I want to buy a property or not is if I would be willing to live in it. Because I don't think it's fair to subject people to conditions that you wouldn't feel comfortable living in. That's cruel in a way. And so properties that are like furnished, all you need to do is just imagine yourself sitting on that couch watching TV, imagine yourself in the kitchen cooking food. Those kind of properties are dangerous for me, because if I like it, then I'm like, okay, sold, show me where to sign, which is not good. You have to be rational when it comes to these things. It's about the numbers. It's about, is this a good time? Is the cost worth it? If I'm renting it out, can I get a decent return for whatever amount of rent I expect to get from this property versus the price that I have to pay for it? So this property, I went to view it. It's so beautiful. Even just thinking about it now, it's so beautiful. And literally I said, okay. And I said it out loud to the sales agent. I said, damn it, I'm sold. Because I knew I couldn't walk away. I think it's important to distinguish. Yes, emotions aren't very valuable when it comes to deciding if a property deal is good or not. But at the same time, as you do more and more property deals, you gain or you develop an intuition about it. So yes, it could be based off of calculation that you can later on actually flesh out, but in the moment it just feels right, and it feels like emotion, but it's because you've seen something similar that works, you've heard similar numbers that work, and so that's the developing of that intuition. Luckily with this property, I had developed a bit of an intuition when it comes to property. This was my most recent purchase versus that other one being probably my second. It would have been my second purchase. So I said sold, signed the documents right there and then, bought it. And the lady that I work with for my bonds, she's amazing, got me a loan acceptance in like 48 hours, but that's because I had all my documents in a row. And yeah, I have it now and it's being rented out. And I don't regret it. It's the biggest purchase I've ever done to date, but I don't regret it because it's so beautiful. I love it so much. And the returns make sense, especially now when the repo rate is so low. So, yes, sometimes emotions do count, but make sure the emotions are coming from a foundation or a solid place, a place of experience, because it's good to have intuition about things, but then also in the background you should be able to make the numbers work. Mistake number 2 is buying a property without viewing it. I know, just saying it out loud, it's crazy. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Such a big property, such a big purchase, and you don't view it. But let me explain. So, I wanted to buy in a building, and I saw one property in that building. The real estate agent that I was dealing with at the time, they were selling multiple properties in that building. So I knew I wanted a property of 1 bedroom, so many square meters, and then the real estate agent showed it to me. Unfortunately, the seller of the apartment that I saw decided not to sell in the end, and so the real estate agent told me, sorry, we can't do that property. However, there is a second property, there is a second apartment in the building, same specs, that's for sale, and the price is a bit cheaper. I think it was about 20,000 Rand cheaper. So I thought, why not? It's the same building. I've seen the building, I've seen the condition. I know what kind of customer I'm targeting in that building. Why not just buy it? So I bought it. It turned out okay. I did have some issues with that apartment, but that I wouldn't say that was because of me not viewing it. It's more of this another mistake that I made that I'll tell you about. But it did work out in the end. I do have tenants in there, good tenants, and I don't think I would have done it any other way, to be honest. But please view all of your apartments. I think the only time where you can be comfortable not to view an apartment is if you're in a new development, you know all the rooms are standardized, like let's say a Baldwin property. You know every pillar is standardized. The first floor is the same for every pillar, second floor is the same. So if you know I saw that particular 3 bedroom or that particular 2 bedroom, it may be in another block, but you know it's exactly the same because it's a new development. So I think that's the only case where I would say, okay, no, it's fine. It's fine to not view the apartment. I mean, now considering what's going on, you can just purchase online with Woven Properties. I've seen that. The third mistake that I've made, and this one was a costly one, it's not vetting the existing tenant when you buy a property. Oftentimes on Property 24 and private property, the agents that list their properties on there will specify if there's a tenant in the property. And a lot of times they use that to attract investors. So it will read calling all investors, well kept property in a safe neighborhood, sought after estate, tenant in place until December 2020. So that you can see they're clearly targeting investors and they're using that tenant as a selling point. So I mean, and that's fine because people want to know that a place is rentable and you want to know that um you'll be able to get returns from day zero. However, you don't know that tenant. You didn't check that tenant, you didn't check their credit, you don't know how the seller approved that tenant, you don't know after approval, did that tenant do what they said they were going to, did they pay their rent? Because it's one thing to have a tenant in place until December, but are they actually paying rent? And I was in a situation where I had a tenant who wasn't paying rent, and I inherited that tenant. Luckily, because I had been reading up on real estate legislation and how things work, I was able to put in notice because I was a new buyer. So the lease that was previously signed converts to a month to month, and then I have 30 days to terminate. Otherwise, I can actually sign a brand new lease with this tenant for a full year. So I decided to just terminate it because in the process of buying that apartment, they had a tenant. That tenant paid rent and they obviously paid a deposit before they moved in. The sellers at the time, I was asking them for the deposit so that they can just transfer it over to me and I keep it in an interest bearing account to give back to the tenant whenever they decide to move out. But then they said, no, we're going to keep the deposit because this tenant is in arrears in terms of rent. So then that in itself, I knew, okay, I'm already pregnant with this apartment, but I can't be involved with the tenant. So I put a notice just to say I won't be renewing this lease and I don't want to continue with the month-to-month contract. And I did end up losing a month's rent in that instance, but rather a month's rent than dragging it out. And then I'm in a position where I have to honor the full 12 months, but I have no remedies in terms of getting the rent that should be paid on that apartment. Mistake number 4, this will be the last mistake that I talk about. I'm sure they aren't. I'm sure it's not the last one that I've made, but it's the last of the biggest ones that I can think of right now. And that is not planning for expenses, not planning for alternative situations. So when you buy a property, this is an important video that I think I should make for you guys regarding buying from a developer versus buying from a pre-existing owner. I bought a property from a developer, and in the process of getting the loan and securing funding, all the processes of registering and all of that, the stage where the developer needs to settle the rates account and transfer ownership over to me, it got delayed by 3 months. So in this instance, when the property is ready to be moved into, there isn't a previous tenant who still needs to move out or who still needs to sell their house. When it's ready for you to occupy, then you need to occupy it, especially if you have stated there's nothing wrong, all the issues that you pointed out, they fixed it, then it's time for you to move in. But if at that stage, when you are ready to occupy the apartment or the building or the house, the property has not been transferred into your name, then that poses an issue because you're essentially taking ownership of this property, but you're not paying a bond on it because your bond hasn't been registered. But then how can your bond be registered because there's no property in your name? So you can't get that property for free. You can't just move in for free. You can't just occupy that place for free. The occupational rent that you need to pay in between the time where the place is ready to be occupied and the property has been transferred into your name tends to be 1% of the value of the property. I don't know about you guys, 1%. It's painful to think about it because those 3 months were expensive. 1% of a property value is a lot. It's a lot of money. If you're a person with good credit, I doubt your bond will be that high. So I was paying occupational rent that was probably 3,000 rand higher than what my bond would have been. And I was paying that for 3 months. And admittedly, I don't think I would have been able to plan for that. because that was the first time I've ever bought from a developer, and because there's technically no transfer happening, you are going to be the first owner of that property. I expected that to go a lot faster, but it was the rates issue and rates accounts and proper calculations that I had no control over, but I had to pay 1% of the property value. Now remember, this is the same property that is my biggest purchase to date. Trash. Complete and utter trash. I've been trying to think of ways around this in the future. I don't know if you're able to alter the occupational rate, because 1% is the industry standard. At the same time though, it's not the industry standard to expect delays that long for the transfer of property on a new build. It's a new build. It's not someone else's home and they also have to sort out their bonds and their transfers and their new place that they're going to live in the background. This is a new build. There's no owner. You're going to be the first owner. It should be simple, but it wasn't. So please learn from my mistakes. Don't be driven completely by emotion. Intuition is good, but also have the numbers to back it. View your properties, okay? View them unless it's a standard build for every iteration in the complex. Vet your tenants. Yes, it's good to get a property that already has a tenant in, but make sure that tenant is a good tenant. Check their credit. It is your right. It's your property. You have a right to decide who rents out your property. You have a right to request those documents on especially if you want this tenant to carry on with you, you can ask to reapprove them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I suggest that you do, because you have no idea what the previous relationship with the previous seller was. And lastly, prepare. As much as there are already bond fees, transfer fees, the deposit, so many other unexpected things can happen. You could have a delinquent tenant. You could have occupational rent to pay. Please make sure you have a buffer with any property that you're looking to buy, because you honestly don't know what could happen. Thank you for watching my video, and thank you for not judging. Please like this video, share this video with anyone who you think needs it, and don't forget to subscribe. It's for free, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.